All right, Ed, we're live. 3 minutes ahead of schedule.
You're like, should we go live? And I go, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You must be so. I know. You took improv classes, and you must be so excited that you've got somebody who's like, yeah, whatever, go for it.
Man,
Or annoyed. I don't know.
feeding off the audience and feeding off a second person, especially when it, improv or whatever, whether it's like, you're trading solos or doing improv comedy. I mean, there's an energy there, goes back and forth, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to you and telling you I was gonna launch into a story, and then you went, let's just go live so we can have it
Yeah.
live.
Let's just go. No, seriously though. What were you saying? You're watching something?
Yeah, I was watching The Greatest Showman,
Oh
with
yeah.
Hugh Jackman
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
yesterday.
I haven't seen it, but I do know somebody who was a double, a stunt double for
Oh, really?
some of the acrobatic routines. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like loved the movie when I first saw it, and I listened to the soundtrack like ad nauseum. Basically, like, way too often to admit.
Which you just did. That's cool.
And then I watched Greg Wells, the mixing engineer,
Mhm.
Greg Wells, and or producer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, mixing engineer, everything.
He's in everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Wells. He produced a lot of those records and mixed The Greatest Showman, the Greatest Show song, which is the intro song, and technically the outro song as well. And I watched the series on Mix with the Masters where they're talking about where he goes through the mix, and it's just there's so much going on in that song. There's drums on top of drums, there's stomps, there's choir, there's Hugh singing, there's guitars, there's all this stuff, and him going through the mix is just it's a treat because he's very articulate and fun to listen to, and it's just crazy to see how he stacks the processing. He's going like there is an obnoxious amount of processing on this song. There's so much compression. There's so much everything. And then because I had watched him go through the entire song, I just had to watch the movie. I
The
just
movie
had to
again.
watch the movie again. And
That's
watching it
great.
again, and he said that when he mixed it, he had to, when he was mixing it without looking at the visuals, he mixed it like he was just mixing a song, mixing a record. And when he synced it up with the movie itself, he's like, oh, it needs to be more powerful. It needs to punch you harder in the face. Those are my words, not his. And it's so true because when you watch the movie and you crank crank this surround sound up very, very loud, a little bit too loud probably, it really just is incredible to watch, just everything going on. And as you know, there's a lot of theatrics, acrobatics,
Yeah.
uh choreography, crazy choreography going on, so it's a lot of fun to watch, and especially knowing the backstory and how all the little details of some of the songs. So
I'll have to watch it. I'll have to watch it. I've got time.
yeah.
So, what sort of excuses there? But yeah, I'll have to watch that one. And the title is The Greatest Showman. So,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course, it's going to be about theatrics and bombast. And
yeah.
um,
It's about the P.T. Barnum, who's
yeah,
maybe not like the historically best character in the world. I think he had some he wasn't like the most honest man or something like that. I can't remember the exact story, but this fictional version of him is very lovable. Especially portrayed by Hugh Jackman. And Hugh Jackman actually spent, I think he tried, I think he spent 7 or 8 years trying to get the movie made, which is just an insane amount of time trying
I
to
did
get
not know that.
such
Wow.
a crazy big thing going. Um, but it is 2 o'clock, so I was going to do late introductions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Influences and References, the live podcast that talks about musical influences and music and just whatever we kind of want to talk about today. And hopefully that will help you improve your productions in some way. My name is Björkfinn Benediktsson. I run Audio Issues. I'm the author of Step by Step Mixing. There it is.
Hey.
And I do a lot of writing and recording and mixing work, or I do a lot of mixing work and a lot of audio education work at Audio Issues. And with me, as always, is Ed Charles Elefterion.
Hey.
And what do you have to say about yourself?
Not a whole hell of a lot, Bjorgvin. Welcome to another edition. So yeah, I'm a I'm a music guy who came from the theater.
All right.
And when I was like 20 some odd years ago, I would say that I was a theater guy that came from music. So um, we've come full circle here. And now I don't know, man, it's Corona time. So now I definitely spend a lot of time in this studio and I write and produce almost every day, if not every day.
Yeah.
Past few days have been difficult, man. A lot of loss. So I have not been working in the studio, but yeah, I'll be getting back in here.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Clifford J. Snyder over in the chat on YouTube says hi,
Oh,
and we
hello. Gotta
should say
open my chat up.
hello, Clifford. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for
Hey,
watching this Ramble On. Ramble On, also a good song. If you haven't checked
good
it
song. Yes, it is a good song. If Clifford or anybody else has questions or wants to chime in or try to keep us into in some
out.
sort of order here, you're welcome to do it. Um, it would be useful for us, maybe or maybe not.
Yeah.
But you're part of the gang now, Clifford. So
Yeah.
thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Um,
Today we're
so
gonna talk about songwriting, mixing, mastering, and releasing your songs. You just released a new single, Springtime.
springtime.
Pretty cool. Let's see if we can snag a Spotify link. Tell us a little bit about springtime in general, not the overall concept of springtime. We're familiar with the season.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I woke up one morning and realized it was spring. And I think that's one of the lyrics. That's like with the third lyric. Or I woke up this morning and realized it was springtime is the end of the first verse. And that kind of is what happened. Because it's so difficult right now. The time is it's just it's a crappy time we're going through right now. And it's not going to end anytime soon. And that's fine. And I'm glad it's not winter anymore because although it's damn cold right now, and I'm in Woodstock, New York, and today is a nice day, but yesterday was cold. I was thinking, should we fire up the wood stove here?
Oh,
Like it's what is it, May 10th, May 11th? Today's the 12th. It's just anyway, it
it's a
seemed
hundred.
ironic to me that it was springtime at all. Like so so that's where the song came from, I guess. This collision between some beautiful life growth that was happening, but it was not happening where I was. It was happening out there through a window. And I'm lucky that I live in a place where I can get outside and I can garden, and I do. I'm very lucky that way. But I know a lot of people who, for example, are in the cities and they don't have the opportunity, and their springtime is really literally out through the window.
Right. Yeah.
And there was some sort of Clifford likes the song. Thank you, Clifford. That means a lot. Thank you. There's there's a sad quality about the song that I was trying to get at. This kind of collision between this green, grow, happy, life affirming, and then the idea that you're somehow in like a prison, and you can't really interact with it in the ways that you used to or ways that you want to. So that's
Right.
kind of where it came from. And
Yeah.
I don't ever know how I write anything. I usually just pick up a guitar or a keyboard. I sit down and I literally put my hands on the keyboard or just grab a guitar and hit a chord. And the first thing that comes to me is what I go with. I don't usually doodle around. The first thing that happens, and I usually have lyrics in front of me. I usually like, I don't know, I'll have an idea about something and I'll sit at the counter and just quickly type it out on the text editor, in the Mac text editor or something. Or I'll use my iPhone and I'll get the audio thing going and I just say it in there.
Yeah.
And that's how it starts.
Do Americans or the English language, does the term window weather have any significance to you?
No.
So there's this term in Icelandic called window weather. And
Mm.
it's beautiful outside, but we're in Iceland, so it's freezing, and it only looks good from the inside.
So this song I wrote has been basically written millions of times in Iceland and other probably similarly situated countries.
Right. And it also reminds me of here because I have the exact opposite situation here in Tucson because it is 100 degrees in Tucson, and the window weather is alive and well, except that now it's too hot to go outside.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not 100 here. It started out here being 37 in the morning. I woke up and I was like, it's 37 outside. Is it, what's the high? You know, the high today was like 52 or something. And I don't know, screwed up times.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in. We are currently just talking about the weather, and
We kind of are, folks. But the song is called Springtime. So, you know, how can we not talk about the weather?
yeah. One thing I really enjoy about your process is just how good you. Well, first of all, I'll tell the audience this: I don't think I've ever heard a poor or a bad Ed Charles song. They're all very, very well put together, really well arranged and written, and you're quite prolific in your release schedule. So tell us a little bit about your experiment.
Yeah,
Uh,
last October I decided to do this. I decided to, instead of, you know, I'd work a year on a bunch of songs and then I'd make an album out because I grew up in the 70s. And I don't know, music to me is, you know, I experience it over time in context with other pieces. Um, and and we don't live in that world right now, I don't think. And I was reluctant to the idea of singles. But then I just sort of opened my eyes and saw that it was there. You probably helped me understand that. Um, and I thought, well, I got a lot of music. I'm just going to release a song a month.
yeah.
I'm just going to release a song a month and I'm going to just keep doing that. And I've got a list, you know, a 300 plus, uh, not even a fan list, just a mailing list, I guess, potential fan list
Yeah.
that I've kind of put together because over the years I've done a lot of theater and a lot of teaching, and people have signed up to be on lists that I'm, you know, connected with, that I produce work and they want to know about it. So I just kind of called those people, put them on my song list, and send it one out every month.
Yeah.
And I think you even asked me, you know, what are your goals? What do you hope to get from this? My friends have asked me that, and my answer is basically one, to just keep doing it. That's one goal. Another goal would be to see what happens. Does it grow at all? And if so, at what rate?
Yeah.
But that's kind of it. Like, I'm not very interested in, maybe I should be more, or if anybody's listening and wants to do this, working with me, you can contact me. But I'm not really like a marketing guy.
Right.
Maybe because I'm an artist guy, and maybe also because if I was a marketing guy, I wouldn't be producing as much as I do.
Right.
Um,
It's
I
hard to
wouldn't
wear a
be.
lot of hats.
You know, like the website, you know, my Relief Tone website, which is basically let me help you arrange or write or produce material. I
Mhm.
designed that, you know, and I put that website together, and the Ed Charles Music website, I put that together, and just learning how to do that was just, yeah, mind breaking. It wasn't even mind blowing. It was mind breaking.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. I do a song a month, and honestly, I had, and I still have, a bunch of songs in the bank. You know, they're done. They're in the can. And I would release what I considered old material one time a month. But then about a month ago, when the world self-destructed, and I was just sort of feeling just unsatisfied, which is a very common feeling for me. Um, and I thought, um, I'm not going to use old songs. I'm going to just start I'm going to start releasing songs that I just wrote that have to do with
What's
the
going on?
time we're in. And, you know, they're just more timely, that aren't about Billie Holiday, although I love those songs. And there's a lot I haven't released of that subject
Yeah.
that I'm going to put out in an album. I'm going to make an album of those and go back to my roots.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm
it's a
going to,
beautiful thing to have a buffer of songs or like a repository of
yeah,
things that you can always. And this is actually touches upon something that I do recommend whenever I am asked to present on how to, how to do online marketing, how to create content online, how to promote yourself, those sorts of things. And what I usually recommend is aiming for consistency. So if you want to write 10 blog posts and you're super overzealous about writing and want to release everything, put everything out there, I would recommend figuring out what is a consistent schedule that you can keep up
Mm.
so that you can get the long run in, because it's a long run game. It's a marathon, not a sprint, to do any sort of promotion and any sort of career. You don't want to have a career for a month. You want to have it for your, preferably for your whole life. So you have to sort of schedule it so that you don't burn out. And if you get overzealous and you write 10 articles or write 10 songs and release one song every day, and
Yeah.
then you're burned out after 10 days, it's way better to space it out so that you can have a longer period of time and you can focus on giving each piece of content the attention it deserves, and then so on and so forth.
I
Because
was afraid of that. Like when I first decided to do it, I was like, am I going to be able to keep up? Well, I've got a lot of songs in the bank. And then it became obvious that as I was releasing older material, I was writing newer material like on a regular basis. And I've always done that. And ever since we've known each other, which is a couple of years now, I mean, you can vouch for the idea that I'm pretty regular in my turnover.
definitely.
And when I realized that I could keep that pace basically as if it was running, I keep my pace and I can do a long distance. That's when I recently decided, I'm going to put out what I'm doing now. And there it is. So
Right.
Jonathan has a question over in the,
Yeah. Yeah.
so go ahead, you take it.
How variable is your process over that month of production? How much of it is songwriting? How much arranging, tracking, mixing, and then releasing?
Oh,
So
that's a
can
good
you
question.
break down the process for us?
Yeah, like right now I'm working on a song, for example, right? When did I write the song? I wrote the song like what day are we on? Wednesday. I wrote the song maybe a week ago,
Okay.
right? So then what I start to do is I start to track it, and I start with this song, and usually I start with either the keyboard wherever the song was born. This song was born on a guitar, so I started on guitar, and I tracked the guitar, the acoustic guitar, many passes, thinking I'll comp it or something, but acoustic guitar is hard to comp.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the songwriting is I guess what I'm trying to express, that I'm doing a bad job of it, and so I'm going to try a different way, is that the songwriting and the tracking and the arranging happen in different stages, as Jonathan's question implies correctly, but also they overlap or bleed.
Mhm.
For example, the melody line of the song I'm working on now, I will discover how the melody wants best to be sung or arranged, even both, the more I repeat it.
Okay.
So I put a scratch track on so that I can, fit my other parts together. But as I'm working, I hear the scratch track and I'm like, I like that. I'm keeping that. But I also know that that first chorus or first verse, I'm like, that needs a rewrite. Like I need to re-record that. And I need to change the word if to when. Got to do that. So, yeah, no, it comes down to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So go ahead. What's your
There's a
question?
little bit, so there's a little bit of like you're self-editing a little
Yes.
bit, but you are still trying to be keep it sort of spontaneous, right?
Yes, and like I just listened to it again before we started this cast here, and there's a solo section, and I heard the keyboard playing, which I did yesterday, day before yesterday, and I listened to it and I'm like, that's wrong. That's not right. That that instrument is wrong, and that solo is wrong. There are too many notes.
Okay.
There's too staccato. It needs to be a guitar, or it needs to be removed, and we just need to go right from one verse into the next verse, because
Right.
it's designed to sort of give a break from the vocal. But
Right.
I think the song may actually be 2 minutes and 13 seconds instead of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I just got to decide. But that answers it talks to Jonathan's question about, like, I'm arranging. That's arrangement right there.
Yeah.
And it's also writing, because I'm writing a solo, I'm writing melodies.
Right.
And I got to decide, is it the piano and the guitar kind of talking to each other? Is it a duet, or is it gone, or is it a guitar solo now? Like, I got to decide.
Right.
But and as I'm working, I'll also do this. I notice this, and I keep asking myself, do you really do that? And the answer is yes, folks. And here it is. As I'm working on, I don't know, let's say keyboard, I'll hear my scratch vocal track, and I'll hear the harmony that I want the backing vocal to be singing at the time. So my philosophy is the following: think it, do it. Like, if I hear it, I'm going to put it down right there.
Yeah.
So I'll stop my keyboard recording, quickly go to my backing vocal bus that I've got set up, right?
Right.
Click record and lay those backing tracks down as I hear them. And when I lay the backing tracks down and mix them, it's never one track. Like my backing vocals are always minimum 3 passes. So I don't use an ADT, an automatic double track, unless I want that effect, but I rarely do for backing vocals. I will sing them all the time without, copying and pasting. Then I'll edit them tight and make sure the S's are right, or, the tops and the tails are nice and tight. But because it creates a kind of chorusing, phasey, subtle kind of thickness that's warm and lush that I really like. I frankly think I'm better at backing vocals than I am at lead vocals. I think if I could do my lead vocals like my backing vocals, I'd be into something. But I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to get a perfect double, but
I don't want a perfect double. That's the whole idea. I know it's not going to happen.
Yeah. The backing vocals are always there's always seems to be a lot of thought put into them and everything I've heard from you. So that's really, really cool. But it seems like one thing I noticed when you're going through the process is just your sort of setup so that it's conducive to creativity. It's not like I get an idea and now I have to do all these things on the computer and then I miss the idea and then everything's gone.
Right.
In the least amount of steps you can lay down an idea like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important when it comes to getting anything creative done. Is in my case, when it's writing, I take a ton of notes throughout the day, and then when it's time to sit down and write or whatnot, I always have notes and always have things that I can like grab. Maybe I've like written down on my phone, and then I flesh it out on the computer. And the same with mixing. I always have a mixing template that has everything that I would probably possibly need. And then that way it's within a couple of clicks instead of like me searching for 500 things 500 times.
Well, something else that Jonathan asked that I spoke about writing and arranging and tracking. I didn't want to talk about the mixing, and that's something else. Like you just made me think of it. Like I have a habit, and it's probably a bad one, which is why I'm sort of backing away from it, but I'm going to say it. I like to, in the same spirit of, if you hear it, record it. I also hear the effects I want, and I will dial them in while I'm working. And if I need to reduce my buffer size in order to get that right, or whatever, because my computer wants to lag, and that would suck if I'm recording live. But if I hear that there wants to be a delay here, I'll sketch it in. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I'll throw it on there. Or if I hear that, like guitar tones are very important, so I won't lay the guitar part down until I get the right tone, unless of course I'm going, no, this is the solo. Like then I'll just record it dry and deal with it later. But more times than not, like keyboards, organ sounds, piano sounds, I'll work for as long as it takes to get the sound right.
Right. Because
that is what I'm trying to, like, I hear it, I can hear it. So I go, once I got that, then I'm sort of free. I feel freer. I feel really like I'm in the zone then. So
and I feel
this is to say that I'm mixing as I'm. So the whole kind of idea of, well, you should really split it up. You should, but that's not how it works for me. So.
Well, I think so like with the overlap zone. So if it's like this, so like this zone in the middle, that's where I would say maybe sound design and production, and it overlaps with mixing. Because if and this goes back to well, I like to say the old days, whatever.
Say it. I say it all the time.
But like, people committed to sounds. They didn't just record DI and then just spent days experimenting with sounds. They just got a really, really good sound, and that was the sound of the record. Then it might have need some additional compression and carving in the EQ to fit it with some other thing. But inherently, the sound design or the tone of the instrument was there when it was being recorded. And I think that a lot of people miss that a lot, or don't put enough thought into it, because they hope, I'll be able to do it later.
No, I'm a big
easier if you do it now, because you've created limitations that you can work within. And as long as you have a good performance, and a halfway decent tone and or a good sound, like it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I the whole philosophy or the whole approach, the approach to making music from the 60s and 70s and 80s, but definitely the 60s and 70s, of, well, this is the sound we're capturing right now. So, if, John, if you can't get the guitar part right, we're just going to get Paul to do it. Or basically, I guess it would have been George, but poor George. I love George. It's my favorite of the Beatles.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, I think that approach is something that I'm aware of, number one, and number two, I embrace. And I like to think of, I like to, maybe it's a way I connect with my heroes, a way that I'm not so alone in my studio. I don't know, but I like to think of the process as myself and see myself in the way of, well, this is what it is today. And somehow this song and this recording is not, it's more of a record of what happened today, like at this time. And that little vocal hitch that only I notice, or whatever, the edit, the splice, the reverb, I wish I had done something different about, that's just part of the recording now. And as long as it's good enough for me to consider releasing, then I know it's okay, because my standards are probably too high. So,
we got some questions here.
Yeah.
Stratman asks, Al Smith just moves the mic. He doesn't need any plugins, except for the fact that all of his mics are thousands of dollars. I had a conversation with Mike Sr. about this last week, and it's really easy to get great sounding records if you're recording in a great room with decades worth of experience, with great mics and Grammy winning musicians. But not everybody can be Al Smith. All right, staying on track. Hi guys, I really struggle to get everything done. I have a day job and I'm songwriting, part of 2 songwriting courses, learning to sing and trying to maintain my guitar playing and also recording. Any tips, or how do you get everything done, Ed?
Jeez, how do you get everything done? Slowly but surely wins the race. I mean, really, it's like kind of a tortoise and hare kind of thing. Stratman, I'm identifying with you. I hear what you're saying. Struggle is the 5th word that you write, and I think that's after hi guys. Okay, so we'll call it the 3rd word. I think struggle is, you're not alone with that, and it's not going to never be a struggle. Even if you come into money and you don't need to ever work again, it's a struggle, because things need tending, right? I don't know, you have a family, or you've got things to take care of. Everybody does. So for me, I guess the only thing I can talk about is my own experience. And I don't get in. I wish I got into the studio earlier. I wish I got into my studio at like the crack of dawn, because the morning time for me is when my brain is really best. So I'll have a lot of morning thoughts. That's what I call them. My wife is like, "Do you have any morning thoughts today, Ed?" And I'll say, sometimes I do, and here they are. And sometimes I got nothing, But the morning thoughts often not only include daily things that you've got to think about, but for me, it'll be a line, a melody, a harmony, a tempo change, some creative idea. And I'll chew on that sucker all morning, whatever I'm doing in the morning, without knowing it. So I wish I got into the studio earlier, but I don't get into the studio nowadays until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And sometimes even later, like today was much later. Today was a long, hard day. It was a lot of loss. But even if I get in late, like around 3 o'clock, 6:30, I'm done. Like I'm back in the house. My studio is separate from the house. So I feel like I'm going to work, which is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
It separates you. Like I knew a story of a writer whose name I can't remember, and I'm sorry about that. But he used to leave the house, walk around the block, and come back in and go to his studio, which was, the separate room in the house, because that's how he separated, his work.
I should do that. I should just go out the door that's over there, and then just go in the door that's right there. This is the door to the outside right there. and just enter the studio and close the door over here, and so feel like I'm in a self-contained space.
I think you should try it and see what happens.
Yeah,
But Stratman, I think this idea of I'm songwriting, part of two songwriting courses. Like, I think the question to ask yourself is, are the songwriting courses helping you? Period. Um,
yeah,
if they are, yes, stay with it. If not, then ask yourself why and give yourself a time period of like an exit strategy. Um, because the best way to learn how to write songs is to write them.
right. And
Um,
and
yeah. Learning to sing, trying to maintain guitar playing, also recording. Um, at one point in my life, I decided I'm going to do an hour of this, and I'm going to get more scheduled because I thought it would be better for me. That's
yeah,
just not who I am. Now you have to ask yourself who you are and know that. I'm the kind of guy that is going to, record the thing when he hears it, as opposed to make a note and wait later on. So the whole regimented schedule is not the best for me.
yeah.
Um,
I I think, and I like you said that. So about the courses, because you can you can spend your entire life learning, but if you don't apply what you learn, you may be smart, but I don't necessarily you may not necessarily be wise. Uh, and I think that going through the courses is great, and I think I'm a huge proponent of education. I'm literally an audio educator myself, so
yeah,
please keep buying my courses and my books.
yeah.
But at the same time, there's also a difference between taking a course and taking a course and then using that course to further whatever is doing. So I would ask, are there are there example practice materials? Are there any challenges in the course that you should follow? Or is there a step-by-step thing that you do every time you finish a module or anything like that? So if so, and you aren't doing them, why not? And if not, or if you are, how is that contributing? And just to piggyback on the process that Ed has, I have I used to be better at routinely writing, but audio just takes up a lot of my time these days. But I have carved out at least there's always mix practice on Monday for me, whether it is me mixing songs for clients or students or anything like that. So I always mix on Mondays, which helps keep my brain fresh and always working on new material and always applying things that I've learned from, because I continuously educate myself on music production as well. So I spend Mondays on that. Tuesdays, I tend to write. I tend to write in the morning, so I'll take a few hours and I'll, pick at a new book or pick at a new chapter or anything of that nature in the mornings, and then I'll sort of plan other things in the afternoon, and then Wednesdays is basically this and calls, and then uh, Thursdays and Fridays is just audio issues related, whether that's mix coaching, writing blog posts, uh, being a part of being inside the membership community that we have, the Insiders Group, and so I've compartmentalized a few things, and then I sort of take everything else that I need to do and put them in the calendar, in the open slots in the calendar, and I really do. I could not live without my calendar in order to feel productive and be efficient especially when it just comes to remembering everything that I have to do. Because I
Hmm.
try to email uh, uh, content or advice or uh, fun things like come check us out live here. I tend to email my audience like every day or so, and that takes up a lot of my time. But I also have the fortune of having guest writers and contributors that write for me now or write for the site, and then I get to share their voices with you guys, which is also a lot of fun too. So um trying to compartmentalize and prioritize the things that are maybe the hardest to get done. I tend to want to focus on doing that first because uh throughout the day your willpower just fizzles out, and I find that if I put the hard task at the end of the day, it's still going to be on the calendar tomorrow,
Hmm.
you know. Let's go. This is fun. Let's have more questions here. Uh,
Zuki.
Zuki,
I love it.
I can do this actually. Do you ever find yourself while writing that this
Whoa.
song sounds like it has already been done, but can't be sure, or try to rack your brain, figure out where you've heard it before? This is a great
Zuki.
question.
Oh, the answer is yes. Every song I write, Zuki, every song I write. And I don't know if you're here earlier, but Bjorgvin paid me a very generous compliment, but I am going to take it. And it basically was, these songs sound good. I like his songs. Thank you, Bjorgvin. But I don't know. Maybe Bjorgvin's the guy to answer this question, or ask him, to Ed's songs, like, is he ripping off the Beatles, or is he ripping off somebody? Like, do you hear his songs and be like, oh, that was ELO, or I don't know,
Yeah, I
right?
I've I don't think I don't think that's, unless you're blatantly ripping it off. It's very very hard to come to the same uh the same perfectly the same line or melody or song structure
Mm-mm.
that something else, because there's just, even though we only have 12 tones or whatever,
Mhm.
I think there's always going to be some originality in everything that you do. And using influence or being influenced by certain songs is a great thing actually. And if
Yep.
you, unless you're blatantly trying to rip the song off, I don't think you can copy it, because if you're trying to do an original song that's based on something else, you're always going to end up in a different place than that musician or slash songwriter
Mhm.
ended up way back when they wrote it.
No, no, I can't disagree with you at all. I agree with you entirely. So, like, for example, Zuki, the song I'm working on now, it's got a bridge, and I love bridges. I love building them. I love bridges. And I get on the bridge sometimes when I'm writing, and I won't know where I'm headed. Honestly, I'll just know that I know how the chords work. I know theory, so I know where I might want to head. And I guess, long story short, I fell into a great cadence. I was like, oh, this is a great cadence. Ed, good job. Right. I was breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. Like, if somebody was here, I'd say to them, wasn't that a good cadence? Um, and and I thought, oh, wait, does it sound like some other song? I was having Zuki's question. It was like right there. And I thought it probably would. It probably, it reminds me of Todd Rundgren or the Beatles, and I started thinking of all of my influences, right? Um, and that's when I was like, yeah, I've been down this road before. This road of, am I cheating somehow? I've been down that road before because, and I think the answer is this: because I have good taste, or what I consider for myself to be good taste.
Right.
And then that taste is absorbed and replicated. It's the same thing like with food. Like, we have the foods we love: pizza, we love it, Indian food, and I'm going to make Indian food, right? And is my dal makhani going to be the same as the other dal makhani that I had at the restaurant? No, can't be the same. Even though my recipe is the same recipe, I got it from the guy in the kitchen. It's going to come out different. And so I say, Zuki, more power to you. You just it's really just you exposing and admitting and exploiting and celebrating. That's the word I was looking for. It took me 4 tries, but it's really just you celebrating your influences and the things that make your taste your taste. So don't worry about it. If you have that thought, you're in good company. You can think of me here in my studio, and I'll be thinking of you.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun you mentioned that thing about taste. There is you probably heard the Ira Glass quote about how one gets good or anything, something like that. So you can Google Ira Glass on taste, and it's basically like, when you're a creative and you're starting out, I'm paraphrasing, of course, and butchering it at the same time, but when you're starting out, you might not be very, very good at what you're trying to do, but you have good taste. So you may not be happy with what you have because it doesn't compare well to the things that you think are great, because you have good taste. But only through repetition and over time will you get better and better and better at it, until your taste matches your skills.
Mhm.
I think that the only way to get there is through practice, repetition, and continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Uh, how do I? This is a great question because I love answering this. How do I pass writer's block, or how do I overcome writer's
Wait,
block?
no, let me ask you, because you're going to answer it apparently, and you're excited about it. So let me pretend. Bjorgvin, I got a question for you. How do I pass writer's block? I am blocked and I need your help.
I would say there is no such thing as writer's block. There's only how much of a work ethic you want to have. I think that if you really want to be a writer, what you do is you schedule time to write, and the only thing that you do at that point, or for that hour or 2 hours or whatnot, and is that you can either write, whether that is writing or songwriting or anything like that. You can either write or you can do nothing. You're not allowed to browse the internet. This is a Neil Gaiman trick. So Neil
Mhm.
Gaiman said this in his writing course, and he said, "You can." He basically imprisons himself in his writing shed, where he can write on his laptop or stare out the window. And you know when
We're all imprisoned in our sheds right now.
yeah.
So,
Well,
the first part we got done.
so you can basically do nothing or do the thing that you're struggling to do and you're possibly fearful of doing because you don't know whether it's going to be good enough. But sometimes you have to write the shitty songs to get to the good ones, or the terrible articles or the awful paragraphs to get your juices flowing. And the
Mhm.
only way to do that is through actually putting words on a page, or melody into the world or
Mhm.
whatnot. And I think that giving yourself not the option of maybe writing, it's either writing or not doing anything else except being bored. And when you're a true creative, it's really hard to stay bored, because you'll end up like picking at your computer or your or your acoustic guitar or whatnot. So
Right.
if you are struggling writing, start by writing one word, and then see
Or
where it goes. Find
or
a
you
chord,
start by writing someone else's words. Now,
right?
this is a great trick. I will grab, because I like theater and I'm a theater guy. I'll grab whatever book I've got on my bookshelf. Lately, I've been grabbing Chekhov. Whatever. Why? He's a great writer. He
Mhm.
understands human beings, and the translation is dynamite. He wrote in Russian, so the translation is I think Paul Schmidt dynamite. So I'll flip through the book like randomly, open a page, boom, put my finger down, and maybe it's the monologue in Three Sisters or something, and I'm like, oh, and I'll find something in that monologue or in that on that page, some image, some line, some idea, and that will get my juices flowing. And I'll literally steal, like I'll borrow I'll say, okay, here's the line. The line is, I don't know, springtime is great. And I'll write it down, and then I'll be like, huh. And then I start thinking about why that line, and I will just let my fingers go. And even if I don't know what to write, I will write the following: I don't know what to write. I'm typing because I must keep my fingers moving.
Yeah.
And must is a smell. It's musty, musk, springtime. And literally,
Yeah.
I will find a page of sometimes just bad ideas, maybe, but words
Yeah.
that later on I can go back to and edit and cut and find. So I guess, Andre, passing writer's block for me, it has to do with I don't ever feel like I'm blocked. I always feel like because I'm never asking myself, like I'm never putting pressure on myself to go, Ed, you must write something. And when I do, which I did recently, I was working on, I did an exercise. I thought, I'm going to take this very famous song, which I will not say the name of, and I'm going to use the same chord structure, I'm going to steal this song as much as possible, but I'm going to write my own lyrics. Why? It's just an exercise because I don't like this kind of music. It's not my favorite style of music, which is why I don't want to say the song. So then I wrote these lyrics, and those lyrics, man, were backbreaking because I made myself write them. And I was like, you must dig deeper. And all of my usual process and tricks and all these techniques I have that I don't even think of as techniques, I denied myself from using them. It's like going into the kitchen and saying, don't use any knives, forks, or spoons. It was a bad situation. So I learned by doing that several things, but I guess the one I'm trying to express now and share now is the idea of taking the pressure off yourself. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be new. You don't have to be better. You just have to find out what's inside of you. And that sounds really hokey, and I'm not a hokey kind of guy. But what I really mean is, like, what are you thinking? Like, and if you don't know, then write, what am I thinking? I have no idea. That's a great lyric.
Right.
Like, I mean, I could do something with that lyric. So I should probably go on because we have other questions.
But
And
it's about momentum, like having
very
momentum,
much,
starting and then continuing on that momentum, and sooner or later it's going to snowball into something that may lead to a song or an article or whatnot. And I always love talking about like the old like Tin Pan Alley songwriters or the Brill Building or whatnot. They were asked, you know, where do you get your inspiration? And it's like, well, first of all, it's very you just have to be inspired to write a song when you get paid to write an X amount of songs per day, because otherwise you lose your job.
well, that's the difference. That becomes
Yeah,
craft. Then
yeah,
now you're talking about craft.
right.
Um,
But it's also they say like, well, inspiration strikes at 9 o'clock in the morning every day, because that's just that's how I've structured it. You know.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I guess I'm very lucky in that, like, I can put my hands down on a keyboard and start doing something. Um, and I'm not a great keyboard player. I'm not a pianist. I'm not trained, but I know theory. I know my chords and I know my inversions, and I have fun at it. And I think that's another big thing. Is like Stratman earlier said, I don't, I'm worried about losing these skills if I don't practice my vocals and guitar daily. And I see that, and I'm like, and all I keep thinking is, do it because it's fun. I used to do that. I used to practice the guitar up here in the studio and make myself take a half hour, an hour, and practice the blues or whatever I was working on. And then I thought, I don't have, that's not fun.
Right.
And then I think, well, Ed, you're not going to improve as a guitarist. And I think, okay, can I live with that? But the truth is that I am improving as a guitarist because I'm recording these songs that I'm writing. And these rhythms, for example, are not easy for me. So I'll spend an hour practicing the guitar, even though I didn't know I was practicing the guitar. I was just trying to get the rhythm right.
Right.
That's practicing the guitar. So but it's fun. It's active. My mind is engaged. It's not just, oh my God, let me think of what else I could be doing. I wish I could do it. I wish I could do my laundry right now. I don't want to do this. Like, that's a bad place to be. So
Yeah. Yeah.
find the pleasure, find the delight in what you're doing. And this is not a problem anymore. So sorry. We should
I
go to.
like Clifford's comment here. For writer's block, my dad always said the first 5 minutes are the hardest. If I can just force the first 5 minutes, then usually I'm off and running. And it's a really good point, because that's so true. Well, first of all, it's very true. And it goes back to that fact of, like, you just have to sit down and do it, even if it's terrible, even if it's just the letter K for 5 pages.
That would be a cool song, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's because you have to, because action and momentum leads to more momentum. So if you are well, it's basically Newton's law of motion. An object in motion stays in motion, right? An object at rest
yes,
stays at rest.
but then there's the entropy, the third or second law of thermodynamics. I think it's the third. Everything goes to shit, basically, eventually.
Well, I mean, you'll eventually write a shit song.
Oh yeah, you tell me the songs I write are all good, and I'm like, you have no idea. I just don't show you all the little darlings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That goes to show that you have to actually get a lot of momentum to get to maybe the great songs. My friend Joe Gilder, you may be familiar with from Home Studio Corner, he did this great exercise a few years ago where he wrote 50 songs in 12 weeks, which is a huge undertaking. And I was so inspired by it that I wrote an actual article about him. I featured him in an article that I was writing for the Medium publication at the time. And because he thought, okay, if I write 50 songs, and we as entrepreneurs, we really like the 80-20 principle, which is 20% of the input will yield 80% of the results or whatnot. And so if he wrote 50 songs, it would possibly create a really, really good 10-song album. So if he chose from that, and this is what people used to do, and still do to a certain extent, they write more songs than they could ever fit on an album, and then they take the best songs. Don't just take the first 5 songs you write and then that's it. You want to write a kind of a catalog, and then you pick the best uh, material to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, part of my process, I didn't really think about talking about it, and I won't spend any time other than saying it, is when I'm starting a song, step one is this worth my time?
Right.
Like, should I pursue this? Should I chase this particular animal around the forest? Or is it really, this is not the one? Let it go and start dating someone else.
Right.
Basically, yeah, where do I want to invest my time? I don't have a lot of it on the earth, and I better use what I do have as well. And well means to make myself happy as possible.
Right.
So, yeah.
Like this comment from Stratman. Abba said that inspiration is like a dragon in a cave that pops out twice a day. That is such a Scandinavian thing to say.
Especially the dragon part.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you check the cave twice a day, you'll probably miss it. But if you stick around, maybe it'll come back. It's so true. Because if you just stay and keep writing, and something will flow. I find that sometimes the first few pages or the first 15 minutes are just kind of terrible writing. But then I get into a groove. I start feeling more comfortable with the writing, and things come a little more naturally. So if you think that everything should just pop out in the first 5 minutes, then that's really not the you don't have the tenacity required to be creative, and everybody can overcome that. And just all you have to do is decide to not do anything else for a little bit of time, and then you will get bored enough to keep working at it. Fun fact about ABBA: I have friends in Sweden. I went to Stockholm a couple of years back, and we went to the ABBA Museum, and it is quite a fun place to tour. You get very interactive exhibits. Really, really cool. It's certainly a guilty pleasure of mine to like ABBA, but there it is on the internet.
I'm sorry. I like ABBA as well, I must confess. Zuki, do you usually think of a melody first in your head and then build a song around it? Or do you usually put chords together first and then attempt, I like the attempt, to put an original melody on top? I do both, Zuki. When I have an idea about a lyric, I had an idea today about a lyric. Someone said something and I was like, oh, that's good. I gotta keep that. So I put it in my back pocket. You get good at remembering these things because you do it a lot. And if not, then just write it down or record it. Go to the bathroom with and record it. I've done that. I've gotten up in the middle of the night, not to disturb my wife, run to the other room, sing into my little, iPhone, sing quietly so as to not wake her, literally, and then quickly back into bed. And that's an example of me going, I have a melody and a lyric. Usually those two come together in that those two kind of muses visit at the same time. Yeah. Then there are times where I'm like, I've got a good lyric or a nice story I want to tell, and I write it, and it comes out, and I know that there's a song in there somewhere, but I don't know the melody yet. Then I get up into my studio the next day. That's me walking to my studio, and I get my guitar out, and I'll sing. I'll just start singing it, and I'll think, I don't know where this is. I don't know what key I'm in. So I'll just use my finger on the fretboard, and I'll go until I find the note that I'm singing. And then once I do that, I go, oh, I'm in C. Who knew? But now that I know I'm in C, I know that I've got all these other chords at my disposal. And then I start singing and writing at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I will make a few turns and retrace my steps the same way you do when you're in a new neighborhood and you're kind of looking for the bakery or something, and you made a wrong turn. And eventually I will hammer something out in 15 minutes, very quickly, and I'll record it on the same little device that I probably started it on, just to get it done, just to get it out.
Right.
Then I start to kind of go into phase 2, which is like, okay, craftsmanship. Start cutting things away, start polishing things up, start saying, this is a placeholder only because this lyric sucks, or this melody here doesn't work, or this turnaround, this cadence is not right. But somehow I have to end up back here. Okay, I'll figure it out later. And I just keep going. So I guess that's a momentum thing. I keep going. I keep going. I don't get hung up. I try to eat as many of the little Pac-Man pellets as I can while the ghosts are all still blue and I can do, I can eat them all. Get as much done as possible and then go back and go, okay, where's the labor going to be?
Yeah.
So
and the better you get at it and the more you do at it, the more tricks you have in your back pocket.
Yeah.
And you can throw maybe first you're throwing a ton of stuff on the wall and seeing what sticks, and then later on you learn what actually sticks and what doesn't stick, so you can narrow your focus a little bit. So yeah, I don't know where that was going, but
that's usually how it happens. And the other version of it is basically I don't have any melody, I don't have any lyrics, but I sat down at the keyboard today and I have this kind of progression that I kind of fell in love with. And how do you fall in love? I fall in love with things by repeating them. Mm-hmm. If I find something I want to repeat and I find my hands are wrong, but I can hear it and I can fix my hands, I can get all the changes right. Because again, I'm not a great pianist. I can play the rhythm section, but that's about it. Once I get that done and I feel like, oh, there's something here. Like I have songs and songs written on my damn little iPhone that have no lyrics, no melodies, but the note on the iPhone says, Ed, song complete, needs lyrics, or a song in A minor needs lyrics. And I have to get to that. I haven't gotten to it yet. But those are like my rainy day songs. Like when I don't have any inspiration, when I don't have anything, then I'll go back to my phone and go, hey, look, this is done already. Let me listen to it. My God, I love that. Now let me try to do something with it.
Right. And that's one of that's why it's always helpful to keep notes and have works in progress. Even if you're not always finishing everything, you have works in progress, you have notes, you have ideas, because if something isn't working that you are working on, you always have a thing to go back to, or you can go like, okay, let's put this away for a second, and I'm going to go maybe edit a blog post or edit a song, or maybe I'll revisit this thing instead, just to keep my sort of creative juices flowing, because it seems like I'm hitting my head against the wall here. I wanted to wrap things up as we're nearing the hour here, and talking about one of the more important things about the whole process of writing and creating.
Oh, I know what he's going to say.
Go
releasing. Ahead. Yeah, I knew it.
Because
what do you want to talk about releasing? Go ahead.
Here's a morning thoughts.
What are the morning thoughts, Björgvin?
If a song or a book gets finished in a computer and doesn't get released, does it really exist?
I have so much non-existent material on my hard drive. Oh, yes.
Oh, the great hard drive graveyard, right?
Everybody's got the hard drive graveyard, but yeah, especially when you've got, like you said earlier, you want to select your good material. Mm-hmm. So that means, I remember, I think it was Steve Van Zandt, Springsteen's guitar player for many, many years, who said, we hate Bruce. Why? Because he's got so many great songs that you have never heard.
Right.
Because he brings them in and he's like, this one, I don't know if it's going to work. And it's a great song.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make the album because he didn't feel it was up to it, or it didn't go well with the other ones. And, and Prince was the same way. So yeah, I have definitely a lot of material, like you're saying, in the graveyard that need to be released. But how do you release it?
Yeah. Well, and it kind of goes to show as well, you don't always know what is good and what isn't, and you often get to know, the power or the impact that your work has by actually showing it and giving it to people. I was talking to Ed earlier today, and we were talking about because I was emailing my audience and I was thanking them, and especially the 11,000 people that have bought Step by Step Mixing since it came out in 2017. And I think I was just floored when I was doing the math, and I was like, wait, I'm past 10,000 copies. This is amazing. And I didn't know this was going to be a good book when I was writing it. It was basically, it was adapted from a video script from my Mixing with 5 Plugins video course, and that I rewrote into a book and sort of hacked together and create, went through and made it into a more comprehensive book that people could read as a standalone product. But imposter syndrome and being worried about whether things are good enough to be released is super real for everybody at all times. Even Bruce Springsteen won't release the songs that his entire band likes. So I just want to like kind of end it by saying that you don't really know whether your work is good enough until you maybe don't have to release it immediately, but you might not know whether it's good enough until you get feedback from objective sources, whether that is not necessarily your friends and family. Your mom is always going to like everything you do, so she's probably not the best choice for feedback, but maybe there's an objective character in your family or objective friend that will actually say whether it's good or not.
Yeah, there's a guy, Stanislavski, right? You've heard of Stanislavski. If you haven't heard of him, he's this Russian theater director in 1900, around that time, and he was revolutionary because he kind of codified an actor's process. And my thought just completely left my head, Björn.
Well, it's just the feedback loop is so important.
The feedback. Thank you. He would say, after you perform, don't listen to what people tell you. Pick 1, 2, or at most 3 people who you trust,
right,
whose taste you trust, and whose acumen, whose expertise, whose input at the very lowest level you trust, and listen to those people. If your mother is one of them, you're not choosing the right people, right?
Unless she is
right,
incredibly established in the field that you are
right. But I think that you get the point. So yeah, in order to underline your point, pick a very small amount of people whom you trust and release it to them. And if you don't have those people, Björn can be one of them. I can be another one. We'll listen to your stuff and tell you, this is what we hear.
Right.
If you need help with that, Björn's the guy to go to. I'm the guy to go to. So yeah, we're here, I guess. We're here.
Yeah.
And we're not doing much else except, working on our own material.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's leave it at that. Get some feedback, continuously improve, keep the momentum going. Carve out time where you can only do the thing that you do want to do and you're not allowed to do anything else. And
have fun.
Yeah. And also do that. Have fun.
No matter what.
Also,
gosh, have fun.
Don't be a songwriter if you don't like writing. And don't be a writer if you don't like writing because you think that you should be pursuing these adventures and endeavors.
Yeah, my family, my grandfather especially would say, Ed, you're a good actor. You should be an actor. I was an actor and then I became a theater director, because it was more challenging. It was more interesting. I don't know. I was more at home there. And he was always like, but you're so good as an actor. You should be an actor. And it took a lot of fortitude for me to look at my grandfather, whom I respect and adore, and say to him, no, I'm not going to do that because it doesn't make me happy.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
And he got it, but you go where you're, follow your bliss is what Joseph Campbell said. And he's right.
Right.
Yeah. Keep your heart happy if possible.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Right. Final comment of the day from Alex Purcell. This was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week to talk about who knows what.
Maybe we'll talk about this again. I mean, I don't know. People seem to have lots of questions.
We don't plan this show at all. It is completely unscripted inspirational improv 101. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah.